So before we dive into all the good things, tell us about yourself and how you got to where you are now.
Got here because I was in medical device sales, clinical research, but my number one job of being a mom, I was the one taking my kids into the doctor when they had a sore throat. And sometimes I'd get it too. Sometimes it was strep and sometimes it wasn't strep. So after a couple of years, it just dawned on me. It was the third time in 1 week that I was at the Minute Clinic. I was like, wait, this is just like a pregnancy test that they're using at the clinic. And I knew enough. And I like to say I didn't know enough too, that this would take so long and be so challenging, that I was like, you know what? Maybe I should do the at-home strep test. And that's really where Checkable was born.
Yeah, I know it's a pain. I have three daughters, and my middle daughter had strep throat all the time,
Yep.
and she eventually got her tonsils taken out when she was like 17. But it was
Mm-hmm.
constant. Every time she was sick, that's where it would be, is her throat, and then go test for everything. And I finally got
Yes.
when she
Well,
was
that's
old
the
enough to
thing.
take herself.
If
That was
they're
a
not,
relief.
it really is a burden. And especially if you're a working mom, it's like, oh my gosh, I have to take off work every time. And my husband is around, but husbands in my family just aren't typically the caregivers, and they're not the patient ones to bring them in. So, like, every mom in my family was like, yes, do it, Patty.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of support that way too to encourage me. So
So tell
we
us,
don't
how does
have
Checkable
our
work?
strep test approved yet. We're going through that long, drawn out FDA process. But the goal is to be the first over the counter cleared rapid
Gotcha.
strep test. So every consumer can buy it at their local pharmacy or mass retailer like Walmart, Target, CVS, Walgreens.
And so then
So
you
you
can
can test
test
yourself
yourself and
at
then call
home,
the doctor from
and
there.
so we'll come in a pack of two. So if you still have symptoms, and then you can test again. And if you're positive, we have a telemedicine platform, or you can use your own telemedicine provider, and then they'll prescribe the treatment plan that will be sent to your neighborhood pharmacy, which is great because you're not wasting the half a day. It's like 20 minutes from start to finish that you can do it. And if you're
Yeah,
negative, then you didn't waste that money and that time going in for the visit.
exactly. Exactly. So how do you balance all the being a mom, starting this
Yeah, it was
company?
tough
How
at
do you balance
first
all of that?
because we relocated from Minneapolis to find non-dilutive funding opportunities that are quite abundant in North Dakota. So that was really stressful, leaving our families
Gotcha.
and just taking up and moving and starting new. And it was in November of 2021 that I really decided, like, wow, I really need to like tighten up my routine and my discipline and just like have that time for myself. And so I started waking up earlier, working out, eating right. I cut out alcohol because that was a huge distraction for me. I just always kept like going back to that. It wasn't the problem. The problem was the stress of my startup, but I used that as like my release. So once I got that together, I really was able to focus on the priorities, which was my family and then my startup. So better for my investors, better for the business, and better for myself and family. Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned that you quit drinking. So why, and then what
So
effects have you
it
seen from
was
that? I'm very
funny,
curious.
not funny. I was at a funeral actually. A really prominent man in the community here in Fargo had died, and he was a huge wine drinker, and I love drinking wine too. And I wouldn't say that I haven't had a glass of wine. Like, I probably have had 5 glasses since November of 2021. So where before I was having like 10 glasses a week. Um, and I just found that every morning,
Yeah.
so that day, the next day I woke up and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sick of this headache that I wake up with every morning. And then I'm so sick of not accomplishing my goals. And
Hmm.
I would like I'm really goal orientated. And if you're in sales, you've got to be, and that is my background. But I wasn't accomplishing my personal goals. And then I found that I was super edgy. Turns out I was in perimenopause too. So I didn't know that. So I was like trying to take that out of the alcohol out of my life. And just that morning, like after going through that funeral and kind of probably overindulging on the wine, I was like, I'm so sick of this headache. I just got to take this out of my life. And then I like really launched into cooking, and I gained a little weight from that because you crave sweet so much. So I started baking and just like probably being obsessive in other areas, but I wasn't on this roller coaster, and it really helped me just balance my life and like be very clear-minded since then. And then I was like, wait, 6 months after that, okay, I still feel icky. What's going on? And that's when I realized, okay, I'm in perimenopause and my hormones were like all over the board. Like we women, we have it so tough. Like I don't think men respect what we go
I get
through.
it. No, and we have no idea what perimenopause is until we
Yes,
realize
that's
that
what
we're
I was
ripping everybody's
doing.
head off for
And
no
then I would
reason.
like be really down on myself about it. And so that doesn't feel good either, right? Like gosh, I'm just a horrible person, and no one wants to
Yeah,
walk around the world feeling like they're a bad person. You want to feel good.
no, exactly. So how did you deal with, so if you took away drinking, then how did you deal with the stress of starting a startup and moving across, moving to
Yeah,
someplace you didn't
I
know away
think
from your
that that's
family? How
where
did
I
you deal
really
with that?
got into yoga. I added walking into my routine, like 10,000 steps a day. Started to sauna and steam and do these things that when I would normally, like right after work, I'd have a glass of wine, I'd have dinner, or I was pretty social too. So I will admit, like, I'm pretty antisocial now, but it turns out that I really was only social for all of those years because I love to drink with my friends, and it is super fun. It just I'm scatterbrained because of that. So I just like feel like I tightened everything up, and in that I got closer with my kids, got closer with my husband, was really able to have the time to like help with volunteering with my kids' sports teams and stuff. Things that I would always make the excuse that I wasn't available for when really I was. So I just like really shifted my mindset on things and looked at it like, wow, I have the opportunity to be super clear minded, to have a lot of energy, to be the best version of myself. And that's like what I kept telling myself, like, okay, you're going to be a better version of yourself. Just like hang in there. And not some days I wouldn't want to. I'd be like, I'm just going to lay here and do nothing and scroll. And I did. And so I feel like I was gentler on myself than I was when I drank.
Yeah,
So I'm
gotcha.
writing a
So
book
tell me about
called
your book.
Every Day is a Day to Excel. And it really is about wrapping your arms around what it is that you want to accomplish, and then adding things in your life that will help you accomplish it, but also removing those things out of your life that are holding you back. So a really easy thing to do is flossing. Like we should all be flossing. Every single human that has adult teeth, we should be flossing every day. Some dentists will say you could floss twice a day, 3 times a day, but it's like 90% of the population doesn't ever floss unless they're in the dentist chair. And it's probably more than that. That's like probably being generous, but it started with, okay, just floss every day. It's just a very simple habit. And once I started doing that for a week, like, oh wow, look at that. I can do it for a week. And I got kind of addicted to that of like my streak. And so I just kept flossing, and then I kept thinking, okay, what else can I do? Okay, well, it's 10 pages a day. Make your bed. 10,000 steps a day. And it's almost like the atomic habits, but if I
Uh-huh.
don't do it, I'm not like crushed. It's not like 75 hard where you get to day. Yes, like I felt like
Start over
I've
again.
never finished 75 hard. And for years I was like, I'm such a loser because I can't finish it. I mean, I think there's a lot of people that have, right? But it's just about that mindset, and it actually is a growth mindset. So every time that you do accomplish it, even the little simple habit of flossing, your brain actually grows and you release a dopamine that's like giving you a sense of accomplishment to keep going. So I just kept doing it with other things. So with
So what are some
10,000
other
steps
tricks?
a day, that's like a huge one for me. And living in North Dakota, and you said you're from Illinois, you know that the elements can be really bad. But what I've learned
Yeah.
with this is that when I go outside and I get at least 5,000 steps outside, I'm prepared for the elements. I have, my face mask, and sometimes I look like a weirdo and I wear goggles, and I have my boots and my jacket, and I get that time outside to clear my mind. I don't listen to a podcast or I don't listen to anything. I just spend time. And that has been super helpful for me. Sometimes I have a treadmill at home where I'll go to the gym, but I wear my Apple Watch and I'm like, okay, 10,000 steps a day. And it's crazy because now 10,000 steps after a certain amount of time, I was like, oh, well, that's table stakes. Like now I can do 15,000 steps a day. And actually last week I went a little overboard. I got a weighted vest about 7 months ago, which is awesome. But if you wear the weighted vest too much, your back hurts. So this week when I was on vacation, I'm like, yes, I'm going to do 20,000 steps a day. One day I did 24,000, and then the next day I did 22,000. And then the third day, my back hurt so bad, like I couldn't even move. Like, you are such an idiot. Like you took it too far. But like, I'm glad sometimes you just need to know your limits. And I don't think we push ourselves hard enough. I mean, even like, oh, I want to write a book. Like I'm still actually writing my book. I'm still working on it. And I'm not done yet, but if I keep saying I'm gonna do it, I just have to do 10 minutes a day of writing. Or right now I'm doing a half an hour a day of writing.
Yeah.
If I don't have excuses not to do it, I just get it in somewhere. It's like, okay, it's just like my list of things to do. And I don't know if that works for everyone. It works for me, and started with flossing and has moved into like every area of my life now.
And I think especially when you work out first thing in the morning, you kind of get addicted to it, right?
Exactly.
And then
yeah,
feel
you're
like
like a
groggy
different
when you
person.
don't do
like,
it.
I like the Patty that gets it done better than the version of Patty that doesn't get it done. So you're absolutely right. Mm-hmm.
Well, and I think you get more done in a day and you're more focused, and at least I am. It's probably I'm undiagnosed ADHD,
I was going to
which
say that earlier,
helps
and
focus me.
I feel like a lot of people say that, but I think it's true. I think we have like, do you need to be medicated? Well, no. Can you do it with actions and discipline and things that help you structure, to kind of control your mind? Yes.
Mm-hmm. No, I know I'm such a terrible mother. All three of my daughters were diagnosed with ADHD, and I didn't tell them. So my oldest daughter is getting her bachelor's, already graduated with her associate's degree in mortuary sciences. My other daughter is her freshman year at Colorado Springs, and so they got really mad at me. Why didn't you tell me? It's like, oh, number one, I wasn't putting you on medication, so you were going to have to figure this shit out.
And like,
I think
it's kind of your edge. Like, isn't that like all of our weirdness about us is like our edge of who we are?
I know, and they say a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners are naturally
it's our
ADHD.
Superpower.
Right? That's why we're so crazy. Exactly.
Yeah, I love Mel Robbins.
Do you listen to Mel Robbins at all?
Yes.
Diagnosed with ADHD.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I've gone to a therapist a few times or like a counselor. And one, it's really hard to get an appointment. So maybe that's part of my ADHD thing. I'm like, I can't hold that appointment like 4 months from now. And two, I don't know. I feel like I can't verbalize enough. So I found that journaling helps me the best, like first thing in the morning. That's another thing that I try to do it every day. And I'm going to admit I don't do it every day because sometimes I just don't. I like sit and scroll, or, I got to get up for my workout class and I hit snooze. Like, we're human, right? Yeah.
I know. Exactly. All right. So you started Checkable all on your own. What advice would you give somebody else who's getting ready to start a business?
I think having an optimistic mindset is essential. But I also think that being realistic about things is essential as well. I've made so many mistakes. I continue to make mistakes. And sometimes you kick yourself in the ass. You're like, why did I do that? But early on, I made a mistake. I was so lonely being a solo founder that I actually had over the years a lot of different people that have sort of saddled up to me and said that they brought so much value and they should get 25% equity, or they should get paid, compensated way more than they deserved. And early on, I made the mistake of signing an agreement where I signed 5% equity off without a vesting schedule. And I didn't like 5%. I was like, oh, well, what's 5%? Well, once you start raising money, you're like, well, 5%, that someone could invest $1 million in the company if you have a high enough valuation, and that they would be a 5% equity shareholder, right? And so that was a really big mistake that I made right away, that I would say before you go into anything too starry-eyed, too optimistic, like take a step back and get your ducks in a row. I did the same thing with my manufacturer, and I was going at risk for a really long time without a contract because we were just seeing if things would work out. And I was still working on a device and some R&D stuff. And I got so far down a path that it was time that we had to do a contract. And I didn't know that the manufacturer was notoriously slow at doing contracts work, like anything that came. It's a family-owned business. So it took a year to get from start to finish, like negotiated that agreement. And I got it. I mean, I'm going to say I had a couple of investors that are like, I'm not going to invest because you don't have that contract done. And, you lose out when you're too optimistic. You don't take the time because we're running so fast and we're so optimistic, which is good. I think you have to be like that self-starter. But like, I just look back and like, why were you such a dumbass? Why did you do that? Like what? I could have done it differently. So I would say like, get your ducks in a row and don't be overly cautious, but it's great to have agreements in place. It just sets, and then also prepare for the worst case scenario, because what if you have a co-founder? What's going to happen if things blow up? Then what happens? Like, what's the walk away clause look like?
Yeah, planning for all that, because you never know where the business is going to go. It's going to go fast, take off fast, or it could be slow. And honestly, I mean, working with somebody,
it really
as a partner,
it's
is
like
just it's just hard. Well, and that's what I always tell. So I run a law firm, and I always tell my attorneys that you have lots of great opportunities, and you can make lots of money, but I will never have another partner.
Yes.
My partner is my husband, and that's hard enough. I couldn't imagine trying to run everything by multiple people to get approval.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that's I think that's the unique personality and skill set that allows you to be successful at what you do. And it's good if you have your line in the sand. I think you should. I felt like I didn't know what I was doing enough and felt so lonely. Probably because you don't have an education background of being a founder, right? Like you just kind of do it. I have so much respect for someone that is an owner operator like you are. That just blows my mind. Like, how do you do it?
Well, I will tell you that I've hired people at higher positions that I automatically gave my power away and just thought that they knew more because they had the education in the thing, or they did the thing.
Agree.
And it turns out that that's not true.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's your business. And assuming they know what you want or how things should be run.
I don't know if this is generally true. You probably have a lot more experience in this, but I feel like women, we do this more than men do. Like, I don't think a lot of men would be like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I need help. No, they always, I have 2 boys. And I'm like, how in the hell did you just go out there and do that? It's because they fake it till they make it. And women were like, nope, we want to have the best team. If you know better, you go. I want the highest chances of success, right? Not always the case.
Exactly. I mean, we give away a lot of our power and honestly, I'll be a little sexist here as a woman attorney. And most of my attorneys that work for me, like 95% are women. We do construction law, but I can tell you as a woman, we're coming in with backup, case loss, everything. And the guy shows up with a piece of paper in a vanilla folder and
I know.
Just because you can talk doesn't mean you're right.
I've seen it with I do some mentoring with kids in Idea Club, or it's a Angel Club, and they get ready to pitch, and the women that are running their so-called startup and they're putting their diligence package together, it's like 10x better than the guys. And the guys can show up and pitch great, but what's in the background? So I'm trying to teach my boys of like, hey, don't just fly by the seat of your pants here, because at some point it's going to come to a reality that you need to be more prepared and, get more foundation laid.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's a balance between willing to take risk, but pausing long enough to know that it's a smart one. There's people that are afraid to move because they don't have everything in order, and then there's people that just jump without having anything in order.
Yeah.
And I found it somewhere in the middle. Not that I've mastered it yet, but at least I consider that I don't just jump all the time.
I tend to really jump, and I mean, and even now I'm like looking back, oh, why did I do that so fast? I mean, that was just kind of the gut feeling, and I went with it. But yeah, you still got to move though, right?
Yeah, I agree. And then you learn from it one way or another. You learn from it. So how much longer on your FDA approval, or do you know?
It's kind of a bummer right now because we have a blackout in communication with any of the health agencies. So we're just kind of sitting here like gotcha. My whole timeline just got blew up. I was supposed to have a meeting with CDC actually this afternoon, and that got canceled 2 weeks ago. And I'm like, gosh, they're actually taking this seriously of like the blackout on communication. They're not even talking with industry. So it's kind of up in the air. I earmarked Q1 2026 for our approval, and then we launched into national retailers at cold and flu season of 26. So I actually go to Walmart tomorrow. There's a VIP event that, because this is going to be huge. If you think of how big the COVID test was, they were still selling 760 million of COVID tests in 24. And COVID wasn't even for me, COVID wasn't even a thing. So it's surprising, staggering to me that they're still selling that much. And cold and flu,
I agree.
We have 82 million people have a sore throat. And so we're looking at it like, okay, this is going to be a big opportunity. And I've been engaged with retailers actually for a couple of years. So we've been back and forth with FDA for quite a while. It's hard to find the right regulatory support. We just went to a new FDA firm out of DC.
I'm sure
that I'm just doubling down and
gotcha.
I'm like, okay, let's go with as many big guns as we can, and let's see if we can make it work.
Yeah.
Because slow playing it and kind of, I don't know. We weren't playing nice. We were just learning about the landscape, and because we have a de novo application, so no one's done it before. There's no path of approval per se. So we're kind of making up the rules, but then you have to ask for permission. Like, did we do this right? Which, as a startup founder, makes it hard because you have to raise money and you have to have a team to support that, and then the timeline shifts drastically. Wow. I mean, to get even just a little Q-sub meeting, it's about 100 to 120 days just to have that happen. So your question was very loaded.
That's crazy.
So I'm not really sure. I do have earmarks in 26. So yeah.
Well, good. Well, if people wanted to find out more about you or more about Checkable, where would they go?
CEO, and checkable.com is our website, and on socials we're Checkable as well. It was so nice to talk with you.
Thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Thanks.